Today you're in for a real treat. Welcome to the first episode of Lights Camera Reaction.
In this episode, we are on location with top advertising photographer Richard Seymour for a behind-the-scenes look with the new all-electric Porsche Taycan.
Later we chat about his career and gain some valuable nuggets of information for any aspiring photographer, certainly if you're looking to become a full-time professional.
But first, have a look at this. Richard started his career wanting to be a pilot for the RAF. No, that's not him. Having at 17 secured a scholarship with the British Royal Air Force, but his love of photography drew him instead to a course at the University of Westminster.
It was the discovery of Stanley Kubrick's sci-fi masterpiece 2001 that would mould his vision and perspective of the world. His work is filled with symmetry, clean lines and bright punchy colours.
Richard's style has found favour with both the aeronautical and the automotive industries. We have an envious client list, such as the Red Arrows and Porsche, utilising his talents to great effect. And his work for Virgin Galactic is really out of this world.
Where many in our profession cling to the approach of the way it's always been done, Richard has embraced digital imaging in all its forms, from the use of moving image and the use of CGI imaging within his still photographs. The day that Chris and I tagged along on the Porsche Taycan shoot was in sunny Norfolk in the UK, but the location ended up appearing as if it was in the Mojave Desert, with images he'd already taken while he was travelling. And then he blended them seamlessly to create a series of beautiful and well-executed final images.
Richard used more CGI composites, which he featured in an iconic image of a BMW concept car, blended with the architecture from the cities of Dundee and Aberdeen in Scotland, all resulted in creating a truly Blade Runner-esque masterpiece. Now, this is a photography show, so we have to talk about cameras. There's a reason why he shoots with his beloved Leica S2 and SL2s, and that's the glass. The Leica colours suit his style to perfection, saturated with the depth that adds to the futuristic signature of his images. Now, I had the opportunity to play with these cameras on the Norfolk shoot, and whatever your opinion on the cost or your brand allegiance, Leica cameras are a joy to hold and use, and the sound of the click is not easy to describe. And no, we aren't sponsored by them, but Leica, if you're watching, call me.
So now join us for an entertaining and resourceful chat about the industry of photography from Richard Seymour's perspective.
Thank you so much, Richard, for coming to the studio.
Chris, you're welcome.
We have many questions to ask you to delve into why you do this.
I love a good interrogation.
So my first question, and a nice easy one, why are you a photographer?
I think the way most people work at this business is they are either passionate about photography and the creative arts, or they fall into it a little bit because they change their mind about what career they want to do, or they're not qualified to do anything else, to be totally honest. So mine is one of those organic things where I drifted into it a little bit. I, all the way through my teenage years, was lining myself up for a military flying career, which lots of young boys and girls want to do, but don't necessarily get very far with it. I did. I passed some selection. I got a flying scholarship. I was on the verge of becoming a military pilot, and then, for reasons that we won't bother going into now, I just on a whim decided at 18 that I didn't want to do it anymore. So you then have to think, right, what else am I going to do at college? I'm not going to be a jet pilot because I've decided not to be. I quite like photography. I used to carry my camera around. What harm can that do? So I just literally got involved in it and did a day release degree as a result of thinking as a, on a whim 18-year-old, that sounds like a cool thing to do. So yeah, simple as that.
That's as good a question as any. I did hear an interview of an American photographer who's quite famous, and he came up with that. I just wanted to meet girls, which I thought was another reason.
My story on that, take on that, is I went to Nottingham Trent. The girl who showed me around was amazing, and then talked to all my male friends about it as soon as I got back, going, I'm definitely going to Nottingham Trent. They're going, just relax. What year was she in? Third year. Right. Do the maths. Yeah. A little bit of academic, Richard. She's not going to be there next year, my friend.
Okay, so question 2. Who or what has been your greatest influence? And as an addendum to that, Did you ever see yourself walking in their shoes and or doing your kind of own version?
Okay, so I think I'm of a generation, especially if you go to college, where you look at the grand masters of photography. Edward Weston, with his landscape work in California, was a big influence just because it's so achingly beautiful. It's hard not to be impressed by it. And the fact that this man used to carry a plate camera halfway up the side of a mountain in Yosemite to get a shot. Richard Avedon, I've got his book down here, again for portrait photography, was just astonishing. And you see the influence of Richard Avedon's portraiture through so many contemporary portrait photographers now. But I think Edward Weston's the one I go back to. Did I want to follow in their shoes? Interesting. Yeah, in the extent that when I was at college, I was delusional enough to think I would also drag some stupidly heavy plate camera up the side of Snowdonia and get some shots.
Yeah.
But I don't think, because I immediately started working, I did my degree day release. So I did it 1 day a week on a Friday, and the other 4 days a week I was assisting a commercial photographer. So I was straight into working with a commercial photographer and understanding the imperative of being a businessman, basically. So I think that overrode any burning desire to be some fabulous fine artist. As much as I love what they did, it wasn't the driving force behind what I was trying to do.
I think that is part and parcel of the industry, where you kind of get into it and you think that you want to be like so and so, but the reality is you've got to be yourself, and
Totally.
And the whole business part of it is actually almost, I'd say, 80%. You know, I mean, we've been around for 30 years, same as you. You can only do that if you have a grounding in actual business.
Yeah, and then we can expand on this in a minute, but I mean, I would say it's at least 50-50, your talent and your business nous. And I don't think I'm a brilliant businessman, but I understand the importance of getting those aspects right if I want to survive in this industry. So it's through the necessity of having to be a competent businessman that keeps you involved. You know, it's as simple as that. If you're not, you will do this, and again, it's something we should probably expand on, but I see it so many photographers come into the industry with high hopes. They're not good financially, or they're not good with regard to how to deal with clients or treat clients, and they sort of reach a peak quite quickly and then they drop off. Either end up in debt or just get disenchanted with all, frankly, the bullshit that goes into being in business and the creative arts, and they leave again. And it's really sad, but they just can't sustain the business because they're not thinking enough in a business space.
I've known many photographers over the years who I thought were brilliant, and they're kind of contemporaries of ours, and they just gave up. They just gave up and walked away, which is a shame.
But you see these people burn brightly. I mean, this is what's lovely about the career arc that I feel I've had, which is I've just progressively got better and better and better from, frankly, quite a low point to start with. And we'll discuss the fact that I moved overseas quite quickly and found myself, having to learn how to do things on my own, on the hoof. But I still didn't, at the age of 25, think I was a living genius. That was absolutely not where I was. I was just trying to be as good as I could and be professional. And that helps. If you just burn like some amazing science experiment at 26 and everyone, all the agencies are buying in your work, they love your vision, and you're doing really well, you have to adapt, or you have to modify that vision quite quickly. Otherwise it's spent. Everyone's tried it out, or everyone has seen it being used and thus won't use you. And it's really difficult. So it's much better to build a foundation of competence in the craft and then just fine tune that. I think it's a much better way of doing it.
Excellent. The next question is, what is the difference for you between commercial and your personal work?
Okay, so the lines have become quite blurred on this for photographers nowadays. In one sense, not for me, because I make 100% of my income from being a photographer and a video director. But in other ways, they're blurred because the personal work is absolutely fundamental and vital to your development as a practitioner. So I could not imagine just showcasing my commissioned work. Even though I do some really interesting commissions, it would put a massive hole in what people see. So I have to do the personal work, what I would call testing, not out of any sense of personal fulfillment, but because, it does, but it's fundamentally to extend the repertoire of really beautiful imagery that people see. So that's why I do it. And it's also a good way, if you have a quiet couple of weeks, it's a really good way of keeping your skill set up and keeping yourself on top of things. So I do it for all sorts of reasons, a whole cluster of reasons, competency, keeping competency up, pushing yourself creatively, extending yourself into new areas of expertise. I'm doing a lot of automotive lifestyle at the moment. I can't wait for the commissions to come in. I choose to test and do that work so that I can showcase what I'm trying to do with that.
So just as going on from that, do you have a budget that you set yourselves for personal work throughout the year? And how do you, is it a case of that you have a certain amount and you can blow it on one shoot, or you spread it over 5 shoots, or do you just play everything by ear?
I mean, I am generous with my testing budget, I won't deny it. I mean, if I can get a story, as I would now call it, if you look on my website, they're all story based. If I can get a story out of about a budget of about £1,000, then that's great. Okay. So that could involve going anywhere on the planet and shooting. I spoke to the Louvre in Abu Dhabi because it's the most astonishing building. Yeah, they did not commission it, but they were approached, they consented to give me exclusive access, and I shot prior to the members of the public going in, and I got some amazing imagery that showcases my urban landscape work. But that was not a cheap test shoot. That's flying to Abu Dhabi and shooting over 2 days. So I'm in the fortunate position I can afford to do that. But, I always say to undergraduates and people new to the industry, get in the car, fill it with gas, drive to the Isle of Skye if you want. Just, there are things you can do. Get a friend of yours who's a friend of a model and say, just get it to give me 2 hours and we'll just do something different on the street and we'll do some testing.
I suppose it's kind of like anything, isn't it? Practice makes perfect. You just got to keep shooting. And I think that's something that I think a lot of the students today, I mean, when I've gone into university, I've kind of knocked that, home, just keep shooting, keep shooting. Even if it's in your backyard, just keep shooting.
But all of our bosses told us that when we assisted them, shoot, just keep shooting. That's how you develop. That's how you develop a style.
You don't actually, in some ways, someone can say it 10 times, but unless you figure it out for yourself, it's, so people will listen to this and ignore us completely until they realise it themselves.
Well, my website's 50% tests. That's how I showcase the kind of things that interest me and that I want to do. And then the others obviously are interested in commission work. But it's so important on all sorts of levels to do it. It just means that when a complex commission shoot comes in, you can hit the ground running. You're not suddenly getting all rusty about it and thinking, God, how do I normally do that? Because you did it last week on a test. It really makes sense to do that.
Excellent. Okay, so the next question. Which professional organisation do you belong to and why did you choose them?
Okay, so I'm in the AOP, but to be completely transparent, I also have been a board member for quite a few years. I joined because I felt it's quite a lonely industry and we all need a few advocates and some support network. And the AOP, especially in the last few years since the whole COVID thing kicked off, has been a really good support network for a lot of photographers. But some years, a decade before then, 20 years before then, I worked as an assistant on their main assistant list, which was amazing. So that was, I think there were about 15 of us who were heavyweight photographic assistants. We had all our inoculations, we had a toolkit we carried around with all our filters and all our Leathermans and everything else in it, and we would get a call off the AOP going, such and such, I need you to go to the Bahamas next week. Are you free? I notice in our diary here you're free. And you would be sent all over the world assisting. It was an amazing experience. And that was basically the best of the AOP for me as a young assisting photographer to be involved in that. So I've literally carried on my relationship ever since I was an assistant. As a photographer, for many years, I didn't feel I was worthy of entering the awards, which is the signature sort of element of being a member of the AOP, because the exposure you get from that is substantial. When I eventually got around to entering in 2012, I promptly won Best in Category in my first attempt, which sort of blew my mind. I still remember they were announcing the winners and I'm chatting away to my then girlfriend, now wife, Camilla, and people are prodding me going, Richard, you're on the screen, mate. And I completely not expecting to win. Like, oh my God, how did that happen? I just put a couple of shots in.
Was that the Dubai one?
What, by the award?
Yeah, the actual shot, the train going through. I just remember being the actual shot of a train coming through Dubai or something.
Oh, that wasn't the one that won, actually. No. It was a photograph taken in the Bentley factory of a half-built Bentley.
Yes.
And that was part of a series I did for the Society of Motor Manufacturers, a campaign we did for them. But again, I mean, there were lovely executions, but I didn't genuinely think they would be the best commissioned object shot at that particular year. Can't remember what the category was, embarrassingly. Anyway, the fact remains it won. And the things that stemmed from that were game-changing for me. So I was between agents. I had an agent before, was looking for a new agent. Trailer and Trailer were there. Carolyn Trailer, who ran it at that point, was there. Saw me win the competition, gave me a hug, said this is amazing, we should carry on talking. Within a month I was being represented by them. Within a couple of months I got representation. And that stemmed from seeing that imagery, seeing the power it had. And to be brutally honest, an agent's looking for something that has commercial value to them. So that was a great leverage for them to say to agencies, this guy just won the awards, you should think about it. So the AOP has been the only organisation that I've bothered with, because for the kind of commercial work that I do, it's the obvious good fit. So yeah, I've got a lot of time for it. It's made a big difference to me. The only frustration I have is trying to get the membership more involved. I mean, the reality is we're all busy photographers, and the board have this where we try to juggle our shoots wherever we are in the world to be around to make a difference. But it would be nice if more members stepped up and wanted to get involved, because what you get is a little, and it looks like a clique and it isn't a clique, but you get a sort of small strata of the membership who are actively involved in doing a lot of things. And it would be healthier if more people were doing something all of the time, because we've got some amazing members doing amazing work, and just trying to find time for them to then contribute to the AOP is challenging. But that's the one thing I'd like to try and change a little bit.
Perfect. So the next question, this is a bit of a loaded one actually. So where do you see commercial photography going in the next 5 to 10 years, being that the change in technology over the last 5 to 10 years has been, amazing?
So I do find it a little heartbreaking that photographers who I would consider contemporaries of mine did not get a grip of digital imaging in the noughties when they should have done. I was lucky at one point around the millennium. I was running a big studio briefly, and I had to get a grip on digital because we needed to be cost effective and we needed to use the very first digital cameras. So I got a bit of a head start because I was using the first Nikon digital sensor. But for me, I think there will continue to be what I've been describing as a bit of a rinse out in the industry that's taken a real battering over the last couple of years because of COVID. So you will find people towards the end of their career arc will just decide it's too much aggravation and will leave a little earlier than they planned. You will find a lot of people at the beginning of their career arc realising that they can't make photography and filmmaking their primary source of income. And it's not about ability, it's just about the practical reality of the work that's out there. And then you'll find a lot of us, a big strand of solid practitioners in the middle who are established, have a good client base of around 10 clients they can call upon, who keep giving them work, who can survive and can build on that and be there for fresh commissions. So I think there's going to be a rinse out, people at the top and the bottom who will lead the industry, which narrows it down to a smaller bunch of photographers and filmmakers. I think the use of things like CG rendering will increase, as it's been increasing for over a decade now. I mean, again, got involved in that very early on, and we'll expand on that in a moment. And I think we will see a greater prevalence of motion, as I call it, video work, than we will stills. So if you're a stills photographer and you're not capable at shooting video, you're in a really weak position. You do need to be able to do both, because clients expect both from you now.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. I mean, in the last, maybe 5 years, but certainly in the last 2 to 3 years, especially during COVID, we were required to do more moving than still, so that the balance shifted towards the other way. And they want someone who can do both. Yeah. They don't want to hire a photographer and a videographer. They want to hire either a videographer that does stills, or a photographer that does video.
Exactly.
So I'd echo that to get into the groove on that one, because I think that if you want to earn a living from photography, then you're going to need to know both. Yeah,
you need to understand narrative. You need to get a grip on it if you're not doing it already. And I made a real point, again, quite early on amongst photographers, of trying to get a handle on video production. I'm lucky that I've got a big, successful video production company who acts as my sort of principal producers. But on other occasions, I'll literally go out and self-shoot stuff with a gimbal. So it just depends on the clients. I've got one client who I've been working for many years who will send me, pre-COVID, all the time over to Geneva, and we would go over and I would shoot stills of business jets, and I would shoot a video production for them with no help, just me and my cameras fundamentally. So I've got camera platforms in the Leica SL that will shoot good quality video and shoot stills at the same time. And that is the way that I have to work on occasions. Other times we'll get in a red, we'll get in a camera car, we'll get in the whole thing, and we'll rig something up and spend 4 days shooting a beautifully executed, £50,000 video production. But you cannot ignore video. It's absolutely the direction it's going, motion hand in hand with stills executions. There will always be, I think within the next 10 years, still a demand for beautifully executed stills work, but it will just get narrower and narrower and narrower in its demands because it's so easy to embed video now. It's so easy to use motion. And motion, to be brutally honest, is often more engaging than stills. It doesn't have to be, but it often is. And certainly in the eyes of people who are looking at their brand and how they can get the most bangs for their buck, they need video. That's what they need.
I love this question. You're probably not going to like this question. This is where you have to fess up. So, what do you consider your most significant failure, and did you turn it around to become a positive moment or a learning experience?
Okay. Any photographer who tells you he's never screwed up is a liar. But
Cut there. Well, just use that. I think that's the perfect answer to this question. So, sorry, go on.
Any photographer who tells you he's never screwed up is a liar. But I do pride myself on having a plan B always now, and there is a good reason for that. So early on in my career, I moved out to the Middle East and set up a studio straight after uni, actually, in Dubai in the United Arab Emirates. That was amazing. I was very young, and I literally had 3 years of assisting under my belt and nothing else. But I thought I was arrogant enough at that age to believe that that didn't stop me being a great photographer. So I went up, set a studio up with the support of a very successful Arab businessman who was the distributor of Kodak products in the Middle East. And they shipped in all this new kit for me. I had Hasselblads coming from Sweden, I had Seymour cameras coming from Switzerland, I had all this stuff. But I was a bit fond of an old Japanese Pentax 6x7 medium format camera that was basically like a DSLR, and it just had a wind on. You put a roll of 120 film in it and you wound it through it, and it was just like a big Nikon. And I was rather fond of that camera. It was just really easy, you could sort of jump around everywhere, didn't need a tripod, it just felt cool to use. So despite having a state-of-the-art brand new set of Hasselblads, I decided to do this particular job I'll go into now on this blessed Pentax camera. Now, the job involved photographing from a tower all of the people from Kodak Middle East who'd come from all over the Middle East. They'd come from Beirut, they'd come from Saudi Arabia, they'd come from, UAE where I was based, where else did they come from? Morocco, literally the whole region. They'd all been flown in for a conference, and it was really important that we got this PR photo of all of these individuals together because it was the only time they were ever going to be together because it was so expensive to pull them all into the same place. So I went up there with my one camera and my rolls of film. Very proudly had my light meter on me. Didn't have an assistant that particular day. Got the tripod out. Thought I do have a tripod. That's probably a good idea. And I had a Nikon FM just stuffed in a camera bag somewhere. No intention of using it. They all sort of arrange themselves, and I'm shouting down, feeling like I'm the big boss, going, "Ladies and gentlemen, come forward a little bit. This is all really good. Great. We'll be as fast as we can, and we'll let you get on with your day. Thank you very much. Light is lovely. Okay, here we go. Just 3 very quick pictures, please. Is all we need to do today. Click, wound on. Click. That's great, ladies and gentlemen. Just a couple more. Click. That's fabulous. Just hold on a moment. Just hold on a sec. Got my other camera. I have no idea why. I just thought, for an instant, I'll just do a couple for me on 35mm. So I got my Nikon out and went, just a couple more, just that's it. Yeah, I know you're chatting now, but just stop for a minute. Thank you, click. Okay, great, we're all done. Thank you so much. Get on with your day. They all go home. I happy with everything, come back, wind the film through the Pentax, get the roll out at the end. One roll, again, not wise, but in those days I thought I knew better. Sent it to my lab boy, he put it through, and I get a call off him. "Richard, we've got a problem with the film." I go, "Oh man, what? All the frames are all exposed on the same frame. You must have had, there's a setting on the back of the Pentax for doing multiple exposures, and I think you had it on, you've knocked it onto multiple exposure." So I basically took 4 frames all on the same thing.
Oh.
And I'm thinking, let's hope that Nikon shot I did handheld is okay. And I got it out and we processed it, and there were 2 frames, and 1 frame had them all just about all looking at the camera, and I got away with it.
And that's all you need.
That's all I need, that 1 frame. The consequences, though, for the reputation of me as the Kodak photographer, and for the company in Dubai, and all these people who are looking forward to getting this picture, and for Kodak Middle East using it for PR, the consequences could have been very, very significant. We were not insured for consequential loss, so we couldn't have just had a payout and flown everyone back. Not that they're all too busy to do that anyway. It could have been catastrophic. So from that day on, I have never gone anywhere on a shoot without a spare camera. And if I have the slightest hesitation, I use both cameras. So what did I learn from it? Always, always, always have a plan B. And I see a lot of young practitioners, young photographers, just grooving it with 1 camera. Seriously, man, don't do that. Back up, don't go out with 1 camera. I know it means it's more expense, but if the camera goes wrong, it's a big issue. Always have a spare camera. If you can afford 1 spare lens, it's sort of helpful. Back everything up, and in the days of film, always shoot more than 1 roll of film in case you've got an issue with it. So always, always, always have a plan B. So I've never been caught out since, because I've had that situation where I've always had backup kit.
I think you're right. All photographers make mistakes. In fact, years ago, in a Bowen's magazine, they asked me, as the first Bowen's magazine, and I was a Bowen's photographer, what was my biggest mistake? Funny enough, after that issue, no other photographer would fess up, so they had to drop the actual part in the magazine because no one would admit to another mistake. But mine was actually something similar. I was photographing an advert for Ipswich Town Football Club, and my assistant handed me. I was shooting Fujifilm, and all the Fujifilms weren't color coded. They just had a different name on them. So I needed Velvia, and she gave me the tungsten film. So I've shot 2¼ square of the manager with his Volvo on the pitch for the Volvo ad. And
they all came out bright blue,
and they are all bright blue. The thing is, they didn't tell me this. I only found out when I saw the ad, which luckily for me, Ipswich Town being blue.
They ran it in blue. They ran it with its colour shift.
Brilliant.
Man, they thought you were being creative.
I absolutely couldn't believe I got away with that because it had such a blue cast. And the thing is, it was quite a bright day, so there was quite a warm colour temperature, so it didn't look that much. It looked like now we'd grade it for a lot of money.
Yeah.
That was my fault because she handed me the film. It wasn't my current assistant. I had my ad.
But that's the thing I was just saying about assistants. So there's a lovely lead on to that, which is I always say to assistants, 1 rule. And it was taught to me with regard to dart slides and large format film, which is if you have any doubts, fess up. I'm not going to be cross, just please fess up. The current version of that is if you drop a lens, I don't mind. It's all insured. I honestly don't mind. Just please, please, please tell me. Because we've got other lenses, we'll put it to one side, we'll use the others, we'll be fine. If you don't, and we shoot fast, and we don't physically check the focus at every point of the thing we want, and we get the job back and it's out of focus. It happened to a mate of mine where an assistant dropped a lens. It's a disaster. Yeah. So it's a whole thing about not being so intimidating that the people working under you think, oh man, he's going to have a total fit about this. Don't be like that. Be the kind person that says, no, really, no problem. Just please let me know and we'll deal with it. Yeah. It's so important. But you can't have a plan B if the people who are working for you are not understanding that degree of support as well. If they think you're going to pick on them or belittle them or just scream in their face, no one's going to say anything. I wouldn't. No. So you need to say, I will promise you, we'll never have an issue with this. I just need to know.
Okay, perfect. So the next question. Now we've all got our favourites, but what do you think is your best piece of work? And more importantly, why do you think it's your best piece of work?
Okay, so it's really difficult. I could pick 50 shots, so I'm thinking, oh man, that really worked that day. But the one that required a little bit of craft and post-production, but nowhere near as much as people think, was a shot that I did that won a lot of awards about 6 or 7 years ago called Autostad. And Autostad is a photograph of one of the car towers at Volkswagen's main production facility in Wolfsburg. So it's shot with Volkswagen, it was shot from the top of the tower, and this has a robotic sled that comes up that goes in, picks up a car from a bay, lifts it down, puts it onto a trailer and distributes it all over Europe. It's really cool because they build them overnight, they move on an underground tunnel, and then the robotic sleds fill up the tower in the morning, overnight basically. So they're empty at night, by the morning they're full, and then during the day they're progressively emptied as people take delivery of their cars. But I did a module on Stanley Kubrick in 2001: A Space Odyssey when I was at college, and it sort of blew my mind. It was quite an old film even then. It was, you know, God knows how many years before it had been done. But I just love his use of single point perspective, which he uses in all of his films. He's got a fixation with it, and worryingly I've adopted the same thing. I like single point perspective in shots. I love symmetry of it. So this AutoStab picture has all that single point perspective thing going on. It has a really sort of futuristic space age feel. A mate of mine said, "Richard, correct me am I wrong, but are you living in the future?" Because it does, like a lot of my tech work, is in the future. It's just the way I shoot, and it's the subject matters that I'm either commissioned to shoot or that I migrate towards. And this is a particularly acute example because it doesn't look real. I mean, it's really, really odd picture. But if I was to ask people to go and look at the rotating space station wheel in 2001: A Space Odyssey, they would see pretty much exactly that framing. It's the same thing, just with pods with people in rather than pods with cars in. It's so similar. So it's a whole subliminal thing, or in my case, probably not that subliminal, but I'm not proactively going into a shoot going, I'm going to make like another Kubrick. But you just think of this stuff and you remember it, and it affects the way you frame the shots when you do it. So that shot won Best in Category at the AAP Awards, won an IPA award, it's won awards all over the world, and it was a really good kickstart for me saying what I do might be automotive based, but it's tech. It's about how we photograph things that shape the modern world. So yeah, it's the best example of that I've got.
Brilliant, brilliant. Okay, so next question. I suppose this is very similar. What was the best moment of your career to date? Clearly the best is yet to come.
I don't know about that deep, but anyway, we'll see. Do you know what? Sounds a bit lame, but honestly, every year you look back on it and you think that was some good projects this year, and it's been really distorted over the past couple of years because of COVID. But despite that, last year we found, I always use the raw we, forgive me, I don't know why I do it. I found myself with my crew, that's probably why I say we, back out in the Middle East where I used to live, with a guy who was the first art director ever to commission me, who was my wilderness and safety expert, driving out into the desert at dawn with a crew of 20 other producers and production support and paramedics and everyone else, driving through the dunes pre-dawn to position myself and a model on a ridge with this epic rock behind us and dunes wandering off into the distance for Inmarsat satellite phone people, and doing a shot of a model at dawn on this hill, and the shot is just epic. It's not my favourite because I've got this fondness for what AutoStab did for me, but as a moment that crystallised how great location photography can be once you reach a point where people are prepared to spend money to send you somewhere in the world to do this stuff. I mean, it's just peerless. It is just the best thing. So that moment on that sand dune with the dunes going into the distance and a tight-knit crew of people and a guy I'd known for 30 years who was helping us execute this thing, and we couldn't have done it without him, and him being the same man who said to me, "Nice portfolio, you actually living here now?" Yeah, I'm actually, right, okay, I've got a Volvo job for you, let me just go and get it out of the drawer, bringing me a car commission within minutes of showing me the portfolio, was just full circle the most perfect thing to happen. So yeah, that was a great moment.
Brilliant, perfect. Okay, so this is the last question. It's quite a long one.
Okay,
and it almost needs to be a kind of a short, punchy...
One sentence.
Well, yeah.
That's always a challenge.
Is it possible?
Chris, is this possible? Let's try it.
After 30 years, and my question to you, sir, is this. If you could speak to yourself as a younger photographer starting out, what one piece of advice would you embed knowing what you know now as a freelance photographer?
Okay, I am going to make it as short as possible, but it ain't going to be one sentence. Stick at it. If you've got a fire in your belly, stick at it. If you don't enjoy it, get out. basically. That's the single most important piece of advice. Because if you don't have a fire in your belly, there are thousands of people out there, including some very capable influencers, along with some less than capable influencers, who will just find the work and will do well out there. So move on and get yourself something that is more satisfying if you don't really, really, really want this. If you really want it and you stick at it, narrow down your specialism. Don't stress if your vision doesn't come to you in the first 5 years. It took me 15 years. And when you find that vision, when you find that look that works for you, just really pursue it with excellence and try your very best to be the very best at that particular thing, and just keep sticking at it. But it is just perseverance. My running joke is, what else am I going to do? Be a taxi driver? I can't go back to military flying now. So I can only be a taxi driver, or I can be a photographer. That's my flippant joke about it. I wouldn't mind being a taxi driver, to be totally honest with you, but I prefer photography and filmmaking.
Yeah, I'm going with barista. I think that's...
Yeah, actually, no, I did want to think about that as well.
Okay, no, this is brilliant. And so, thank you so much for coming in. Really do appreciate it, and it's absolutely wonderful. So, thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you.
Thank you for watching, and we hope you found it interesting.
There was far more conversation that we could actually include in this episode, but bear with us, we will find a way to bring it to you.
And in the meantime, we're working on further interviews with amazing photographers, so stay tuned.
Please let us know your thoughts and comments below. And if you are intrigued to see who we are going to feature in the future, subscribe and like our channel so we can keep filming and talking to more incredible photographers.
Thank you.